What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, we're going to talk about 10 drivers who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. So at the end of the 2023 season, there could be a lot of rides available and a lot of free agents. Some drivers could retire at the end of the 2023 season, and some drivers can move to other organizations in 2024. And there, like I said, could be a lot of rides that could be available at the end of the 2023 season. So today we're going to talk about all the drivers who could potentially make a jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. The first driver who could make the jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Zane Smith. Now, Zane Smith is probably the biggest prospect currently in the lower tier series at the moment right now. He's won a lot of Truck Series races, won the Truck Series Championship in 2022, and has already scored 2 Truck Series wins in the 2023 season. He has also made his NASCAR Cup Series debut last year, Gateway, and has already ran 1 or 2 NASCAR Cup Series races so far this season, albeit has struggled in the select starts that he's had in the 2023 season so far. But I think of how good he's been in the Truck Series, I really truly believe that Zane Smith will be in the Cup Series on a full-time basis in the 2024 season. Now, what ride could Zane Smith drive for? What rides could be potentially open for Zane Smith in 2024? There's a couple potential. The first one is a second front-row motorsports car. I still think Michael McDowell does have a chance of returning in 2024, but Michael McDowell is starting to get up there in age. I think if front row was smart, they would try to keep Zane Smith for 2024 in a second or third front row car. But if he doesn't return to front row, what ride could he go to? Well, I think there's a really strong chance he'd go to the 4 car in 2024. Stewart-Haas Racing is looking for a driver that is really good for the long-term future. If Kevin Harvick leaving at the end of the season, someone who's going to bring sponsorship funding and also has a lot of talent to back it up. Zane Smith, I think, is the future of Ford, and I think if you're Ford's position, you're going to try to convince Zane Smith to go over to Stewart-Haas Racing in the 2024 season. But I think there's a very strong and a great chance. I think this is likely in the 90-100% chance range where Zane Smith will be in the Cup Series. I think there's a really strong chance Zane Smith will be a Cup Series driver in the 2024 season. I think he's got a good shot in getting in the Cup. The second driver who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Josh Berry. Now, Josh Berry currently drives full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the number 8 car for Junior Motorsports. And while he's not scored a win so far in the 2023 season, Josh Berry has finished up front in a lot of races this season. One thing also know is that Josh Berry is a super sub for Hendrick Motorsports currently at the moment. And he'll make a couple starts for Alex Bowman, as Alex Bowman's out for the next 3 to 4 weeks due to fractured vertebrae. Josh Berry's also made 5 starts so far this year, substituting for Chase Elliott, and generally ran pretty good in those select starts. I think a lot of owners are looking at Josh Berry at a potential possibility. So what rides could be available for Josh Berry in 2024 if he decides to make the jump? The first one is obvious. I think you go to Junior Motorsports. Junior Motorsports has been rumored they definitely want to make the jump up the Cup in the long-term future, and I think there's a chance Junior Motorsports could make that jump up in 2024. So that could be a potential possibility. But an outside possibility is that number 4 car. Stewart-Haas Racing, like I said, is looking for a talented driver, and if they don't get Zane Smith, I think Josh Berry has to be a second choice for Stewart-Haas Racing. Josh Berry knows how to get the best out of equipment, and I think the more experience he gets, the better he's going to become as a driver. And I think he's just too good right now to pass up. I think the chances of Josh Berry going to the Cup Series next year are probably in the 90 to 95% range. I think they're pretty high right now, and I think there's a chance he could be a full-time driver in the Cup Series in the 2024 season. The third driver who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Nemechek does have quite a bit of NASCAR Cup Series experience. In fact, he did run a full-time season in the Cup Series in 2020, driving the number 38 car. And while he did score a top 10 at Darlington or a couple top 10s, he generally struggled and had the most DNFs of anybody in the Cup Series field. But over the last couple of years, John Nemechek has went back down to the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series to improve his craft. And so far, in his select NASCAR, in the select Cup Series, he's done pretty good. But in the Xfinity Series and Truck Series, John Hunter has done a pretty good job. He's been a championship contender in the Truck Series, and currently he's a championship threat in the Xfinity Series with 2 wins so far this season for Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, what ride could be available for John Hunter Nemechek? Well, I think there's one ride that could be available for John Hunter Nemechek, and it's the number 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. Mark Truex Jr. could retire at the end of the 2023 season, and he's also said it might be 50-50, but there's a good chance that Mark Truex Jr. could retire at the end of this season. And John Hunter Nemechek has that Cup experience, and I think he would do a really good job driving full-time in the 19 car, or the 18 car if they decide to basically renumber his number. So I think there's a really good chance John Hunter could go full-time Cup racing, and I think that you're going to see Joe Gibbs Racing try to move him up next year in 2024. He's got a lot of talent. I think he's got a really good chance to go full-time once again in the Cup Series in the 2024 Cup Series season. The fourth driver who could jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Austin Hill. Now, Austin Hill currently competes full-time in the number 21 car for Richard Childress Racing. And so far in 2023, he has been a championship threat all season long with 3 wins so far this year. He scored a win at Daytona, then he won in Las Vegas, passing Chandler Smith late, and then he ended up scoring the win at Atlanta in race number 5, but has not won since that Atlanta race. Still, Austin Hill has also planning, I think, to make a couple more Cup starts here. He's already made a couple Cup starts in the 2023 season, but he struggled in both those races and didn't even make the Daytona 500 earlier this year. I look at a potential possibility for Austin Hill to make the jump up, but if he does make the jump up, what team could he run for in 2024? Well, I think there's a couple potential possibilities. Number 1, he goes Spire Motorsports in the 77 car. I think Austin Hill's a better driver than Ty Dillon, and I think he would get the best out of equipment there. The second possibility is Fire Motorsports sells their second charter, the 77 charter, and gives it to Rich Childress Racing and brings back the number 33 car, which Austin Hill drove in 2022 at Michigan, where he finished in 18th. I think Austin Hill deserves an opportunity in Cup. I think his chances of going to Cup are probably about 75 to 80%. I think they're very, very likely, but it's going to come down to the question if can he get the sponsorship and the funding, which he does have good sponsorship funding backing him, but the question can be, will he go full-time? I think there's a chance, and there's a pretty good possibility that it could absolutely happen in the 2024 season. The fifth driver who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst currently drives the 98 car for Stewart-Haas Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And if you had to ask me who has probably been the most improved driver so far in 2024 season, I would have to say Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst has been absolutely incredible in the NASCAR Xfinity Series this year. He's had a couple finishes recently where he struggled, but 2 of the races where he finished outside the top 10 have not been his fault. You go back to that Martinsville race where he got taken out by Ryan Truex after Ryan Truex got into Sam Mayer. And then you think about the previous race of Richard where he got completely dumped by Brandon Jones. He led laps in that race and was contending. Riley Herbst also has made a couple select NASCAR Cup Series starts so far in the 2023 season, where he scored a top 10 in the Daytona 500, and unfortunately ended up getting involved in the last lap crash at Talladega very recently. I think Riley Herbst has a lot of potential to make the jump up next year. Now, what ride could he drive in 2024? Well, I think there's a couple potential possibilities. Number 1, he'd go to one of the Rick Ware racing cars and drive on a full-time basis with that Monster Energy backing. The second one, and it's a no-brainer to me, would be the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. Eric Almirola could potentially, at the end of the season, he might end up retiring. So I think that could be a potential ride that is available for Riley Herbst in the 2024 season. And I think the chances are probably about 70 to 75%. I think they're a little lower than the other drivers, but I think he still has a really good chance and a shot to make it up to the Cup Series. He still needs to win an Xfinity Series race, and granted, I think he's got a really good chance to win one by the end of the year. But Riley Herbst, I think, has a really good shot of getting up to the Cup Series next season. The sixth driver who could jump up to the Cup Series in 2024, or jump back up to the Cup Series, is Cole Custer. Now, Cole Custer will drop back down from the Cup Series back down to the Xfinity Series in 2023, and so far has not been a promising start to the season. Now, he's been turning the corner around. He's been finishing races a lot better, especially as of recently, but he had a terrible start to the season. But Cole Custer, I think, definitely has plenty of time to really turn the corner, and I still believe that Cole Custer is going to be a championship threat. I think he's still going to win quite a few races in the 2023 season. And you have to remember that he has that big connection with Haas. Of course, he drives for Haas Racing. I think Cole Custer does have a pretty decent shot to get back up the Cup. The question is, with what team? Well, I think it's one organization, and it's with Stewart-Haas Racing and back at the number 41 car. I think Cole Custer absolutely wants to make the jump up back to Cup, and I think there's a really good possibility. And I think there's absolutely, like I said, a great opportunity and a shot of that potentially happening. I think the chances are probably in the 60 to 70% range. I think they're lower than the other drivers ahead of him, but I think that Cole Custer is going to be pretty competitive, and I think he's absolutely competing to try to get up to the Cup Series next year. I think there's a good possibility he gets back up. He does have some Cup Series experience as well, and team owners are definitely going to look at that. He had 3 years. Yes, he did struggle in Cup, but he does have that win in Kentucky from 2020 that really helps his case. So we'll see what happens, but I think he's definitely got a shot of going to Cup. The 7th driver who could jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Sammy Smith. Now, Sammy Smith currently drives the number 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and picked up his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series victory earlier this year at Phoenix. And Sammy Smith has generally run really, really well. And to a lot of people, including myself, we believe that Sammy Smith is going to be a championship contender and a championship threat this year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and probably will be able to make it to the Final Four by the end of this season. The one thing that could hurt Sammy Smith's opportunity, though, to go to Cup on a full-time basis is his age. Sammy Smith right now is only 18 years old and will not turn 19 until I believe late June or early July. And I think, like I said, that's going to hurt Sammy Smith's opportunity. But I think Sammy Smith being 18 years old, he has got a lot of talent and a lot of potential. What ride could he go to if he does decide to make the jump up? Well, I think it comes down to 2 rides. The 11 car and the 19 car. The 11 car is less likely because I think there's a really good chance that Sammy Smith is still, not Sammy Smith, Denny Hamlin is still going to be in that 11 car next year. But Mark Truex Jr. might retire. And maybe we see Joe Gibbs Racing choose Sammy Smith over John Nemechek. I think that's an outside possibility. I think the chances of Sammy Smith jumping up the Cup are a little lower than his other people ahead of him. I think it's probably about a 55 to 65% chance where we would see Sammy Smith make the jump. But I think he's got all the talent in the world where I think he backed it up and have a shot of going Cup racing that year. The 8th driver who could jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith currently drives the number 16 car for College Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and already has picked up his first career NASCAR Xfinity Series victory, picking up at Richmond a couple weekends ago. And Chandler Smith has generally been pretty impressive with the number 16 car this year. He has been the only College Racing car that really has contended for wins on a consistent basis. Yes, AJ Allmendinger picked up a victory in the number 10 car at COTA, but that's the only time he's ran in that car this year. Chandler Smith has been extremely impressive as a young upcoming talent, and I think Chandler Smith has all the potential in the world to win a NASCAR Cup Series championship one day. But I think he still has a really good shot of returning to Xfinity next year, but he could jump up the Cup next year. So if he goes to Cup on a full-time basis, what ride would he drive? Well, I think it comes down to one ride, and it's 2 potential possibilities. He either takes the number 16 car if A.J. Allmendinger does decide to retire at the end of the 2023 season, or he could take a third call car and they somehow get a third charter acquired for Chandler Smith. I think Chandler Smith will be in the Cup Series at least on a part-time basis for sure in 2024, but I think the chances of going full-time are probably in that 50 to 60% range. I think it's kind of likely a shot at it, but I don't think it's 100% a likely of happening. That being said, though, I do think Chandler Smith does have a chance, does have the possibility of doing it. I think he will be pretty competitive, and I think he might get more wins in Xfinity this year. I think he'll continue to be very competitive and will try to make the playoffs this year. In Xfinity, where he's already in, but he will try to make it in the Cup Series in 2024. The 9th driver who could jump up to the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Sheldon Creed. Now, Sheldon Creed has been running in the Xfinity Series the last year or two, and let's be honest, up until recently, Sheldon Creed had kind of struggled. But I feel like in the second year, Sheldon Creed is kind of starting to emerge. He's not on the same level as his teammate Austin Hill, who's been a championship contender for the last couple of years. But Sheldon Creed, I feel like I said, is starting to emerge a little bit more than he has in the past. And I do think that Sheldon Creed is this close and has been really close in the past, especially when you go back to Darlington in the fall last year, where he's been this close to picking up victories. And I think that Sheldon Creed will get maybe a win or two by the end of the 2023 season, and that could propel him up to the Cup Series. Now, I think it's a little less likely than the other drivers ahead of him. But my question is going to be, if he goes to Cup, where does he go to? Well, he goes to the third Rich Schultz racing car. Plain and simple. He's been part of the RCR camp and the Chevy camp the last couple of years. An outside possibility could be Legacy Motor Club because he drove for GMS in the Truck Series, but I think more than likely if he's going to go Cup racing, it's likely going to end up being with Rich Schultz Racing on a full-time basis. I think a chance of him going to Cup around that 40 to 50% range. I think there's a chance for sure, but it's not 100% likely, but I think he does have a potential possibility and a potential shot to get up. I think that RCR will be unwise and not give him an opportunity shot, but I think there's definitely a possibility. And the 10th and final driver who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024 is Hailie Deegan. Now, Hailie Deegan's probably the biggest wild card and probably the one you're going to be a little surprised about, considering she has struggled in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series the last couple of years. And that is definitely true. Hailie Deegan has not performed at an exceptional level over the last 2 years. But she does have a couple things going for her. Number one, she did pretty good in her Xfinity Series debut, finishing in 13th, and generally was contending for a top 10 near the end of the race. Also, Hailie Deegan, I feel like, has been kind of starting to improve in the Truck Series over the last few weeks, and I think if she continues to do that, she might get a win with Thor Sport Racing. The other key thing for her is she's got sponsorship and funding, and you need to have sponsorship and funding if you're going to jump up the Cup. And I think that maybe Stewart-Haas Racing might be looking at her as a potential possibility for 2024. I think it's potential. I think it's possible, and anything could happen. Now, our chances of going to Cup, I'm going to say are about a 30 to 40%. I think she's at least like if anybody in this field to get up there, but I think she definitely has a really good shot and a good possibility of making that happen in 2024. But I think it's less likely than the other drivers, but she does have a potential shot and a possibility to make it up the Cup. So those are the 10 main drivers who could jump up the Cup. I'm going to have some honorable mentions. First one being Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones came very close to making this list, but I feel like he's like Justin Allgaier, and he's going to be a journeyman driver in the Xfinity Series for a long period of time. Sadly, I don't think I see him making it up full time. Sam Mayer has not performed well enough, in my opinion, to make the jump up yet. He's definitely got talent potential, but I don't think he's ready to make that jump just yet up to the Cup Series. Daniel Hemrick, he's had some Cup starts in the past, ran a full Cup season in 2019, struggled there. I think he could make some Cup starts in 2024, but not on a full-time basis. So, that is the mirror for today's special video on 10 drivers who could join the Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2024. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so you know if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my page as well. Links are below over that. And comment your thoughts on today's video. Which of these drivers do you think are likely to make the jump up to the Cup Series in 2024? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, there should be a NASCAR news video on the channel discussing the news over the last couple of days. We're going to kind of give a little more update on the Alex Bowman situation right now is not able to discuss. Then on Saturday, there could be a NASCAR Xfinity Series race review, but something else could be on the channel that day depending on the weather. And then on Sunday, we could have a NASCAR Cup Series race review. Weather's not looking too great. Hopefully the weather doesn't become a major factor there. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.